You ever walk into a room thinking one thing and walk out realizing your whole life just got flipped inside out? That was me on a Thursday night in early spring, pulling into the driveway of a cozy little Italian place downtown. Vanessa picked it. Said she wanted to talk things through, maybe try to save what we had. After 9 years together, I figured it was worth the effort. My name's Nathan Brooks. 38. Mechanical engineer. The kind of guy who reads manuals cover to cover, who shows up early to every appointment, who doesn't raise his voice unless absolutely necessary. I'm steady. Loyal. Some would say boring. But I don't cheat. I don't lie. And when I said I do to Vanessa, I meant it. She used to say that's what she loved most about me, that I was her anchor. Reliable. Safe. She said it like a compliment, but now I wonder if that was code for something else entirely. That night, she asked me to dress nice. Something more than flannel, she joked over text. I didn't think much of it at the time. Just figured maybe she wanted to rekindle something. So I shaved, put on a button-down she once said made me look like I had my life together, and even brought a small bouquet. Dumb, I know. But I was still fighting for us. I walked into that restaurant with a sliver of hope. What I found instead? Tyler Kane, her coworker, sitting at the table with 2 wine glasses already poured, his smirk burning a hole right through me. Vanessa looked up and smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Nate, she said like she was addressing a stranger, this'll just take a minute. The waitress hovered, sensing tension. Tyler waved her off with the kind of arrogance that makes you want to put your fist through a wall. We'll need a little privacy. I sat down, still holding the flowers. The silence was loud. And then came the pitch, because that's what it was. A rehearsed speech. Vanessa said things weren't working. That she'd found clarity with someone who saw her potential. And then Tyler chimed in like he was part of a company merger. We're asking you to consider stepping away quietly. I blinked. Once. Twice. You brought me here to break up our marriage like it's a business deal? I asked, my voice steady. Too steady. Vanessa's expression didn't change. I thought this would be easier. I looked down at the flowers in my hands. Lilies. She used to love lilies. I placed them gently on the table. Then I stood up. Enjoy dinner, I said. And I walked out without another word. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. But I wasn't broken. They thought they were closing a chapter. They had no idea I was just turning the page. The night air hit different after that. Cold, but clean. Like something had been pulled from my chest. I drove without knowing where I was going, just letting the road stretch out in front of me. The city blurred past the windows while my mind locked onto one thing. This wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. Planned. Polished. Public. Vanessa didn't slip up. She staged it. And Tyler? He didn't even try to hide the glee in his smug little grin. He thought he won. What they didn't realize was I'm not the type to explode. I don't burn bridges. I inspect them. Quietly. Thoroughly. And when I walk away, I leave the matchbook behind. By midnight, I was in my garage with a beer in one hand and my old hard drive in the other. Years ago, I set up a personal backup system. Part paranoia, part habit. My engineering brain just doesn't like loose ends. I dug out our home network logs. Vanessa never understood just how detailed the router history was. Or that our smart devices left trails everywhere. 3 hours later, I had timestamps of late-night video calls with a certain Tyler K., hotel reservations that weren't mine, and a few receipts from boutique places 2 towns over. Vanessa doesn't drink whiskey, Tyler does. He posted about it on his Instagram more than once. I made a mental note. Social media was next. But I wasn't just building a case. I was building calm. Focusing not on what hurt, but on what I could prove. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Not my brother, not my best friend, not even my buddy Alex, who once helped me move a couch and swore he'd help me bury a body if it ever came to it. This wasn't about pity. Or rage. This was about leverage. The next morning, I called a lawyer. A quiet man named Franklin Webb. 40 years in family law and not a trace of showmanship. I like that. He listened more than he spoke, and when I showed him what I'd found, he gave me the kind of nod that told me I was in the right office. She's going to try to frame this like a mutual separation, he said. But this shifts the narrative. And if you keep collecting, we can flip the whole thing. I nodded once. That's what I want. No drama. No screaming. Just truth. Laid out plain. Franklin smiled, then slid a folder across the desk. Then we're going to need a timeline. You up for that? I opened the folder and started writing. By the end of the day, I had security camera screenshots, GPS logs, joint account transfers I hadn't noticed until now, and a screenshot of a text Vanessa sent Tyler during our anniversary dinner last year. Ugh. He made reservations again. So predictable. Yeah. I remembered that night. Took her to the same place we went after I proposed. Thought it might bring something back. Turns out she was already gone. The difference now? So was I. Just not the way she wanted. By Monday, I had everything I needed and then some. See, people like Tyler think confidence is the same as intelligence. That cocky strut of his? It covers up a lot of sloppiness. Especially online. He used his personal email to book a weekend getaway with Vanessa. Cancun. 2 weeks before our anniversary. Guess who paid for the flights? Our joint credit card. Franklin's paralegal flagged it the moment she scanned our financial history. You're entitled to reimbursement, she said casually. Not just reimbursement, I replied, already picturing the courtroom. I want the judge to see the full picture. Over the next few days, we filed the preliminary divorce paperwork. Clean. Strategic. Infidelity clause clearly marked. And then we attached a request to freeze our joint assets pending investigation, citing financial misconduct and potential fraud. Vanessa would find out soon enough. I wasn't trying to blindside her. I was just tired of being the one left in the dark. Meanwhile, I started preparing my exit from her version of our life. She always joked that I kept everything too organized. Passwords, insurance papers, tax records, even appliance warranties, I had them all filed and backed up twice. That obsessive habit she used to roll her eyes at? It became my greatest weapon. I cleared my name from the utilities. Separated the auto insurance. Had the locks changed on our storage unit and moved my sentimental stuff out, things she never noticed, like my dad's cufflinks and the pocket knife my grandfather gave me when I was 12. She could have the fancy plates and the throw pillows. I wanted the pieces that carried meaning. Then came the final piece. Security footage. Our doorbell cam recorded audio. I'd forgotten that until I went digging through old files. 2 months ago, Tyler had come by during one of my work trips. Didn't even try to sneak around. Vanessa opened the door laughing, barefoot, with wine glasses already in hand. She said, "You've got the whole night? Nathan's in Dallas." My stomach twisted hearing it. But my hand? Steady as I hit download. I copied the file to a flash drive, labeled it Exhibit C, and slipped it into Franklin's growing folder of quiet, damning proof. That night, Vanessa called. Blocked number. I let it ring out. Then she texted, "Can we talk?" No, we couldn't. Because the last time we talked, she sat across from me with her affair partner and asked me to leave quietly. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was patient. And patience, I've found, is what people fear the most, especially the ones who think they've already won. The first time Vanessa realized something was wrong was at brunch. Not a courtroom. Not a lawyer's office. Brunch. She was with her sister at some trendy downtown spot, posting mimosas on Instagram like everything in her world sparkled. That's when she tried to pay. Card declined. Not once. 3 times. She messaged me that afternoon. "Hey, did something happen with the account? My card isn't working." I waited exactly 2 hours before replying, "Yes. It's frozen. Legal precaution." The dots popped up, then disappeared, then popped up again. "We need to talk." That phrase again. I didn't reply. She called the next morning, this time from her work phone. I let it go to voicemail. "Nathan, I don't know what you're doing, but this is getting childish. Can we please be adults about this?" I saved the recording. Labeled it Projection Exhibit D. Then I went to work. The divorce filing had gone through. The court date was scheduled. And Franklin had served Tyler, too, just to make sure he knew he wasn't some background player. Adultery has consequences in this state. Even if you smirk your way through every HR seminar about appropriate conduct. Then came the fun part, discovery. We requested communications between Vanessa and Tyler tied to work devices. Franklin filed it under relevance to character. Her employer's legal team was now involved. Suddenly, her little office fling wasn't just a scandal, it was a liability. I didn't lift a finger. They were unraveling themselves. At night, I found peace in simple things. A beer on the back porch. Jazz records I hadn't played in years. I even dusted off my old bike and started hitting the trail before sunrise, something I'd given up back when my world revolved around her schedule, her moods, her dramas. Funny thing was, as the noise of the breakup got louder, I felt calmer. People started noticing. My buddy Chris, who hadn't heard from me in months, shot me a text. "You good? You're glowing or some crap?" I laughed out loud. Hadn't done that in weeks. "Just getting back to myself," I replied. And I meant it. But the best moment? That came on a Friday morning, 2 weeks before the hearing, when Vanessa called again, but this time she left a different kind of message. "Nathan, it's not about the money. I didn't think you'd go this far. Tyler's freaking out. My boss wants to meet with HR. I didn't mean for things to get so ugly. I replayed that line. I didn't think you'd go this far. Translation, I didn't think you had it in you. They always underestimate the quiet ones. Especially the ones who've been holding everything together for years until the moment they stop. The hearing was scheduled for a Thursday. By Tuesday, Vanessa's lawyer called Franklin with an urgent proposal. They wanted to settle. Quietly. No court. No discovery. That told me everything I needed to know. I told Franklin to reject it politely but firmly. We'll let the process play out, I said. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. But I'm not protecting a lie either. That Wednesday night, Vanessa showed up at my apartment. Unannounced. I hadn't seen her face-to-face since that dinner. She looked different. Smaller somehow. Not physically, just less put together. Like whatever version of her had strutted into that restaurant with Tyler had been hollow to begin with. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Hi, she said, voice shaky. I just nodded. Can we talk? I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. She looked surprised. Like she still expected the old version of me, the guy who would try to keep the peace, soothe her guilt. But he was gone. She took a breath. I didn't think it would get this far. You said that already, I replied. I didn't mean to hurt you. I let that one sit in the air for a moment. Then I asked, then why bring him to dinner? She looked down. I continued. You could have sent a text. Called. Filed papers. Instead, you staged a whole scene. Why? She didn't answer. Couldn't. Because there was no good answer. No excuse that could wash off the fact that she wanted control. She didn't just want out, she wanted the last word. The image. The upper hand. But now? That hand was empty. I'm not here to fight, Nathan, she said quietly. I don't recognize the person you've become. I almost laughed. That's funny. I finally recognize the person you've always been. She flinched a little. I'm done protecting your story, I said. Whatever fallout comes next, it's yours to deal with. Then I opened the door behind me and stepped back inside. I didn't slam it. Didn't curse. Didn't look back. In that moment, that silence, that restraint, it said everything louder than any shout could have. The next day in court, she sat 2 rows ahead of me, whispering frantically to her attorney. Tyler wasn't there. He'd been laid off quietly the week prior. Office gossip moves fast, and apparently HR doesn't take kindly to scandal when it comes with documentation. Franklin laid out our case simply. Respectfully. I watched as Vanessa's lawyer shuffled through our exhibits, the photos, the receipts, the video clip of Tyler casually walking out of our house in my hoodie, sipping from a mug with my initials on it. She never looked back at me. Not once. But I didn't need her to. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for her to see me. I saw myself. Clear. And I wasn't going anywhere. 3 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. No drawn-out war. No last-minute reconciliations. The judge reviewed the evidence, nodded gravely, and signed the paperwork with a stroke of his pen. Just like that, 9 years were distilled into court records and signature pages. I walked out of that courthouse into a clear autumn afternoon. Franklin gave me a firm handshake and a quiet, well done. No celebration. No high fives. Just a quiet victory, the kind that hums under your skin instead of roaring out loud. Vanessa didn't stick around. She slipped out the side entrance with her attorney, sunglasses on, chin tucked down like she was hiding from something. Or maybe from herself. The final ruling had awarded me full control of the house, the one I renovated with my own hands, the one she tried to turn into a stage. She got what she came in with, minus the debts Tyler had racked up on her cards before skipping town. I didn't touch her savings. Didn't need to. I wasn't after her money. Just the truth. And now I had it acknowledged, documented, legally settled. But that wasn't the end. Not for me. See, revenge doesn't always come in thunderclaps. Sometimes, it arrives like a sunrise, slow, steady, undeniable. I spent the next few months rebuilding my life from the ground up. I started with the gym. Nothing extreme, just discipline. Reclaiming my mornings. First, I hated it. But then the soreness turned to strength, and the mirror started reflecting someone I hadn't seen in years. Not a broken man, not a betrayed one, but a version of me I actually respected. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen since college. Started saying yes to things, hiking trips, barbecues, live music on Fridays. There's a kind of peace that settles in when you stop clinging to what hurt you. I also moved, sold the house. Not because I couldn't bear the memories, but because I didn't need to live in a shrine to survival. I bought a smaller place outside the city, modern, clean lines, lots of light. Felt like a reset. A home built with intention, not history. And then, I met Claire. It wasn't romantic at first. We met at a local volunteer cleanup event, both of us dragging bags of trash along the riverside, cracking dry jokes about the weather and muddy shoes. She had this calm energy, like nothing about her needed to be flashy to be real. She didn't ask about my past right away, didn't pry. We talked about books, about her dog, Boone, about how she used to live out west and miss the mountains. It was light, easy, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I had to earn someone's interest. I could just be me. I wasn't looking for love. But sometimes, the best things show up when you stop searching and start healing. And with Claire, healing didn't feel like work. It felt like exhaling. Claire never asked for the full story, not until I was ready to tell it. We were sitting on her back porch one evening, watching Boone chase fireflies across her yard. The sky had that deep purple hue you only get in late summer, and she was curled up beside me with her head on my shoulder. She asked one question: what happened before this? Not what happened to you. Not why are you here. Just before this. I told her everything. Not all at once. Not in dramatic monologues. Just pieces: the betrayal, the ambush dinner, the slow unraveling of a life I thought was built on something solid. And then the quiet revenge. How I never raised my voice, never lost my temper, just took back what was mine with clarity and precision. When I finished, she looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Sounds like you didn't just walk away. You chose peace." That stuck with me, because she was right. I hadn't run. I hadn't burned everything down. I just refused to keep standing in the fire. One night, months later, I ran into Vanessa. It was at a grocery store, of all places. I was grabbing eggs and coffee. She turned into the aisle like she was on autopilot and nearly dropped her phone when she saw me. She looked tired. Hair done up, but in that way where it's trying too hard. Makeup perfect, but her eyes couldn't lie. You can't contour away guilt. "Nathan," she said, almost a whisper. I nodded. "Vanessa." She stared at me like she expected something. A confrontation, maybe an apology, even though she was the one who should have given it. Instead, I reached for the carton of eggs. "How have you been?" she asked, forcing a smile. "Solid," I replied. "You?" She hesitated, trying to figure things out. I gave her a polite nod. "Hope you do." That was it. No anger, no bitterness, just distance, earned distance. And as I walked away, I heard her say softly, "You look different." I didn't turn around, but in my head I thought, yeah, I finally stopped trying to hold together a life that was never really mine. That night, I told Claire about the encounter. She didn't react with jealousy or pity, just slipped her hand into mine and said, "You okay?" "I'm more than okay," I said, and I meant it. See, people think revenge is about destruction, but it's not. Not always. Sometimes the most devastating revenge is showing up whole, happy, and completely untouchable by the people who tried to tear you apart. A year later, I barely recognized the man I used to be. Not in a bad way. More like looking at an old photo of yourself. Same eyes, same bones, but a different weight behind the expression. Back then, I carried so much of someone else's life on my shoulders. Now, I stood lighter. Not emptier, just freer. Claire and I didn't move fast. We weren't rushing toward labels or timelines. We just built something real, brick by brick. We had dinners that turned into long talks, hikes that ended with coffee and muddy boots, nights curled up with her head on my chest, Boone snoring at our feet, and no sense of performance between us. She didn't make me prove anything. She just made space. That's when I realized the difference between what I had and what I have. Vanessa always needed something from me: reassurance, control, attention when it was convenient. Love was conditional, shaped by her moods and whatever drama she'd spun that week. I used to think compromise meant shrinking. With Claire, compromise just meant listening, adjusting without losing myself. And that was a revelation. One afternoon in early fall, I was out in the yard sanding down an old bench I found at a flea market. Claire came out with lemonade, set it beside me, and smiled. "I never told you," she said, "but I asked my friend about you before our first date. She knew Vanessa. I'd heard things." I looked up, surprised. "Yeah," she nodded. "She told me you were the kind of guy who never raised his voice. Said Vanessa used to call you boring behind your back." That landed a little harder than I expected. But Claire reached down, touched my shoulder. "I think boring men make the best partners," she said, "because peace is underrated." I didn't say anything at first, just looked at her, this woman who met me not in the aftermath but in the rebuild. And I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was choosing who got access to me, choosing what version of myself I put into the world. That night, I logged out of the shared cloud account Vanessa and I had used for years. I'd held on to it for backup reasons, old tax files, a few photos of trips that didn't even mean anything now. But it was time. Delete. Confirm. Done. I closed the laptop and exhaled. It wasn't rage that ended the chapter. It was grace. Because revenge, at its sharpest, doesn't scream. It just walks away with its head high, no longer carrying what was never meant to be held forever. The first time I realized I was truly healed came in the simplest moment. Brushing my teeth one morning, staring into the mirror, and realizing I wasn't waiting for the next storm. No bracing, no mental calculations, just silence, steady breath, clear mind. For years, even before Vanessa's affair, I had lived in a low-grade state of tension, trying to be the man who kept the house stable, the bills paid, the arguments avoided. I didn't even realize how much I'd contorted myself to fit into her shifting expectations until I was out of it. But now the man staring back at me was someone I trusted, someone I liked. Claire noticed it too. "You walk different these days," she said once, curled up beside me on the couch. I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah," she nodded. "Not like you're trying to convince anyone of anything." I smiled. "That's because I stopped needing permission to be myself." It had been over a year since I'd heard from Vanessa. Not a text, not an email. Last I heard through a mutual acquaintance. Tyler had moved out and she was living alone in a smaller place on the other side of town. No drama, just distance. She didn't reach out on what would have been our anniversary. She didn't write some long apology. And truthfully, I didn't need her to. Forgiveness, I learned, doesn't always require a conversation. Sometimes it's just accepting that someone did what they did, and choosing not to carry their shame on your back anymore. I forgave her, not for her sake, for mine, because I didn't want to be the man who replayed the betrayal forever. I wanted to be the man who built something better after it. And I had. That fall, Claire and I took a trip to Maine. Just us. A cabin by the water, no distractions. One morning, I made her coffee while she read on the porch, and I thought, this is the life I thought I was building before. Only now it's real. No performance. No manipulation. Just peace. We talked a lot on that trip about life, about what we wanted, about kids someday, maybe. Nothing carved in stone. Just honest thoughts between two people who'd both lived through some wreckage and found a way to build again. On the last night, I stood by the lake while the stars blinked out over the dark water. I thought about how far I'd come. The quiet revenge. The calm precision. The slow rebuild. And I realized this wasn't the end of the story. This was the start. Of living without bitterness. Of loving without fear. Of finally becoming the man I was always meant to be. Not in reaction to someone else's betrayal, but in pursuit of my own peace. It's strange how life circles back when you least expect it. About 6 months after that trip to Maine, I got an invitation. A wedding. Not Vanessa's. Her sister's. We'd always gotten along. Madison had a good head on her shoulders, and she'd sent me a quiet sorry text the week after everything blew up. I hadn't replied. Not because I was angry, but because I wasn't ready. Now, her name was on the envelope with a handwritten note inside. I understand if you don't want to come, but I wanted you to know you're still respected. And missed. Caught me off guard. Claire found me staring at the card that evening. I handed it to her. You going? she asked gently. I shrugged. I don't know. If you don't want to, don't, she said, pouring tea. But if you're only not going because of the past, you've already moved beyond it. Might be worth proving that. To yourself. She always knew just how to say it. And so, a few weeks later, I went. I didn't wear anything flashy. Just a sharp navy suit, clean shave, polished shoes. The kind of man who walks in not to impress, but to arrive. I saw Vanessa across the lawn the moment I stepped through the gate. She froze. She didn't look bitter or smug, just quiet, older somehow, not in age, in energy. Like life had taught her some lessons too. Maybe not the same ones, but lessons all the same. She didn't come over. She didn't need to, because I wasn't there for her. I was there to support someone who remembered me when everything else had fallen apart. I gave Madison a warm hug, signed the guest book, left a quiet gift. And just before I left, I turned and caught Vanessa watching me from across the garden. We held eye contact for maybe 2 seconds. Then I smiled, small, calm, not sarcastic, and walked away. That was it. No grand confrontation, no forced apology, no rehashing old wounds, just a man leaving on his own terms. Back home that night, I lit a small fire on the patio. Claire curled beside me with a blanket, Boone asleep at our feet. We sat in the quiet, no words needed. Eventually, I whispered, I think that was the last piece. Claire didn't ask what I meant. She just nodded, because she knew. The final act of revenge was never about exposing her. That was already done. It was about freeing me, about walking through the storm without bitterness in my lungs, and stepping out into a life I built with honesty, clarity, and strength. They wanted me to walk away quietly, but I didn't. I walked away whole. And that, right there, that's the real victory.